The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer, weekday afternoons at 5 Eastern on CNN.
Let's talk a little bit about this latest article or blog that you wrote, because it sort of jumped out at me. You said you don't want the Islamic Cultural Center to be built near Ground Zero. You want it to be built.
Well, Muslim Americans, that we so understand that these murderers hijack their. I never believe that they're.
Yeah, I was just going to say, let me interrupt for a moment, because as you know, a lot of Americans think that they have every right to build.
When they're being bullied by people who are using this issue for their own political gain.
What did you think of the way the president, the commanding general in Afghanistan,